The broadcast began without warning, a cold mechanical hum cutting through the routines of millions of humans scattered across Earth and its far-flung colonies. Every screen flickered to life, displaying the insignia of the Galactic Empire, a chilling emblem of interlocking silver and crimson lines that seemed to pulse with an otherworldly menace. There was no escape. The transmission was forced onto every public and private channel, leaving no corner of human-controlled space untouched. In homes, offices, and bustling spaceports, people froze. Conversations halted, tools were set down, and breaths were held. The hum faded, replaced by a deep, resonant voice, alien yet unnervingly perfect in its articulation of human language. The voice lacked emotion, but its words struck like a hammer. "This is a message from the High Council of the Galactic Empire to the people of Earth," it declared. The screen shifted to reveal a massive arena, dimly lit and otherworldly. Towering alien figures known as the Vicarans, the rulers of the Galactic Empire, stood in silent, menacing rows. Their biomechanical armor gleamed under the harsh lights, their elongated, blue-skinned forms and featureless black eyes exuding a cold, unyielding authority. At the center of the arena, thousands of humans knelt in shackles. Their faces were hollow, their spirits seemingly crushed. They were survivors from a human colony on Epsilon Prime, a settlement that had dared to defy the Empire's suffocating rule. The colony's rebellion had been short-lived. The Vicarans crushed it with swift brutality, and now they intended to make an example of its people. The arena camera zoomed in, capturing every detail of the condemned. Men and women, the elderly and the young, even children, all bound by chains, all helpless. There was no room for mercy here. In Earth Defense Command, General Alexander Kane watched the broadcast in silence, his jaw clenched so tightly it felt like it might crack. The room around him buzzed with the low murmurs of officers and soldiers, their faces pale and tense. Kane was a battle-hardened man, his weathered face marked by scars that told stories of countless confrontations, but nothing could have prepared him for this. As the camera panned across the arena, it lingered on the alien emperor himself. Towering over even his own kind, Emperor Taylor stood with an air of unshakable authority. When he spoke, his voice carried both elegance and disdain, each word calculated to humiliate. 70,000 of your kind dared to defy us, he began, his tone cold but almost conversational. They chose rebellion over order, defiance over submission. This is the price of their choice. Kane's nails dug into his palms, but he refused to look away. He made himself watch as the Vicaran executioners moved into place. Platforms rose from the arena floor, rows of nooses dangling ominously. The first group of prisoners was marched forward. In the tense silence, the only sounds were the clinking of chains and the muffled cries of the condemned. Then, with a mechanical efficiency that betrayed no emotion, the platforms dropped. The room filled with the dreadful, finality-laden silence that followed. Kane closed his eyes for a brief moment, but the images were burned into his mind. Around him, the officers shifted uncomfortably. Some looked away, others muttered under their breath. One young lieutenant whispered, "Monsters." The broadcast continued, unrelenting. Group after group was marched forward, each execution colder and more methodical than the last. The Vicarans observed it all in utter silence, their expressionless faces amplifying the horror of the scene. Finally, when the last human had fallen, Emperor Taylor addressed the galaxy once more. His gaze was piercing, as if he could see every human watching, every human trembling. "Let this serve as a reminder," he declared. "Humanity's place is not to question but to obey. Rebellion will be met with annihilation. Submit, and you may yet survive." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving only the dark reflection of Kane's face on the blank screen. For a moment, no one in the room spoke. The weight of the atrocity hung heavy in the air, suffocating any attempt at words. Then the silence shattered as officers erupted into arguments, some demanding immediate retaliation, others urging caution. Kane silenced them all with a single commanding word: "Enough." He turned to face the room, his eyes blazing with a fury that burned hotter than any star. 70,000 of our people," he began, his voice calm but trembling with suppressed rage. "Not soldiers, not combatants, families, children, murdered in cold blood." The room grew silent again as his words sank in. The Empire thinks it can break us. That we'll cower in fear. They're wrong, he said, his tone hardening. This isn't just an act of war, it's an act of genocide, and it will not go unanswered. A young officer stepped forward hesitantly. Sir, with respect, our fleets are outnumbered. Their technology is centuries ahead. If we retaliate, they've been ahead of us before. Kane cut him off, his voice sharp. And every time we've endured. Today, they reminded us what we're fighting for. They gave us 70,000 reasons to fight harder than ever before. He turned to the massive window overlooking Earth's capital city, the golden hues of sunset casting long shadows across the skyline. His reflection stared back at him, unyielding and resolute. This isn't vengeance, he whispered to himself. It's justice. As he faced his officers again, his voice rose with commanding authority. Prepare the fleet. Notify every colony, every outpost. Humanity goes to war. The room buzzed with activity as officers moved to carry out his orders, but Kane remained at the window, watching as the light faded into darkness. His mind was already racing ahead to the battles to come. The Empire had struck first, delivering a blow designed to crush humanity's spirit, but in doing so, they had made a fatal mistake. They had underestimated the resilience of the human race and the fury of a leader determined to demand justice for his people. The fight for humanity's survival had only just begun. The command center of Earth Defense Command was alive with a hum of activity. Officers darted between holographic displays, their faces etched with determination and anxiety. General Alexander Kane remained at the observation window, his sharp gaze locked on the horizon. He didn't need to turn around to feel the weight of their expectations pressing on him like a physical force. His people were looking to him for answers, for leadership, and above all, for hope. The atrocities broadcast by the Empire had spread like wildfire. Across Earth and every human colony, outrage burned brighter than any star. Protests erupted in the streets, demanding justice for the 70,000 innocents. Images of the condemned, their faces frozen in fear and despair, were shared and reshared, igniting a collective fury that transcended borders and political divides. But fury alone wasn't enough. Kane knew this. He had seen too many battles lost to emotion, to reckless decisions made in the heat of anger. Humanity's survival depended on something greater, a strategy, a purpose, and the unity to carry it through. Behind him, Commander Elise Moreno approached quietly, her boots clicking softly against the polished floor. She was one of Kane's most trusted advisors, a tactical genius with a sharp mind and an unshakable resolve. Yet even she struggled to hide the wariness in her voice. "General," she began, handing him a datapad, "preliminary reports from the colonies are coming in. Support is overwhelming. They're ready to fight." Kane glanced at the datapad, his brow furrowing as he scanned the information. It was true. Across the scattered human settlements, volunteers were pouring in, offering their ships, their resources, and their lives. But there was a problem. "We're ready to fight," Kane echoed, his voice low, "but are we ready to win?" Moreno hesitated, her lips pressing into a thin line. "The odds aren't in our favor. The Empire's fleet outnumbers ours 20-1. Their technology is more advanced. Even with every colony united, we're still outgunned," Kane finished for her. He turned to face her, his expression unreadable. "We've been outgunned before, Commander. And yet here we are." She nodded, her respect for him evident in her eyes. "True, but this time, it's different. They're not just trying to defeat us. They're trying to erase us." Kane's jaw tightened. He knew she was right. The Vicaran Empire wasn't content with subjugation. They wanted humanity to be an example, a warning to any other species that might consider defiance. This wasn't just a war for territory or resources. It was a fight for existence. The void of space seemed unnaturally quiet as the Erebus Asterisk and its accompanying fleet prepared for the inevitable clash. Communication lines buzzed with activity as officers coordinated strategies and reviewed contingency plans. Kane stood at the command deck, his hands gripping the edge of the console tightly as he stared at the holographic display. The red markers of the Vicaran forces were drawing closer, converging like a noose around humanity's last stand. On the mission ship, Captain Solon and her team had reached their target, a vital Vicaran supply depot on the outskirts of enemy-controlled space. The station loomed before them, a labyrinth of metal and energy pulsating with imperial precision. The strike team's small stealth craft maneuvered carefully, avoiding detection as they approached one of the station's maintenance docks. Solan's voice was steady as she addressed her team. "We have one shot at this. Plant the charges, disrupt their supply lines, and get out. No heroics." Graves smirked, adjusting the strap of his weapon. "No promises, Captain." The team moved with practiced precision, navigating the station's corridors as alarms threatened to expose them at every turn. Solan's heart pounded in her chest, but she forced herself to focus. Each step was a calculated risk, every second a test of their resolve. Back aboard the Erebus Asterisk, the tension had reached a breaking point. Kane and Moreno studied the latest intelligence reports, which revealed a troubling development. The Empire's fleet was larger than anticipated, their numbers swelling with reinforcements that hadn't been accounted for. "They're baiting us," Moreno said grimly. "They want us to commit everything to this fight." Kane nodded, his jaw clenched. "And if we don't, they'll pick us apart colony by colony. We don't have a choice." The comms officer interrupted their discussion. "Sir, incoming transmission from the strike team." Solan's voice crackled over the speakers, filled with urgency. "We've planted the charges, but the Empire's forces are mobilizing faster than we expected. We're outnumbered. Extraction's going to be complicated." Kane's chest tightened. "Hold your position. We'll send backup." "There's no time," Solan replied, her tone resolute. "If we wait, they'll trace this back to the fleet. We'll buy you as much time as we can." The line went dead, leaving Kane staring at the console in silence. His mind raced, torn between the need to protect the fleet and the guilt of leaving Solan and her team to face impossible odds. Moreno placed a hand on his shoulder, her expression grim. "They knew the risks," she said quietly. "We have to focus on the bigger picture." As the fleet braced for battle, whispers of doubt began to creep through the ranks. Soldiers and officers alike questioned whether they could truly stand against the might of the Empire. Kane addressed the crew directly, his voice echoing through the ship's intercom. "I know what you're feeling," he began, his tone steady but charged with emotion. "Fear, doubt, anger. I feel it too. But let me tell you this, we are more than just a fleet. We are humanity's last hope. Every one of us has a role to play, and together we can show the Empire that we will not bow to tyranny. Stand tall and remember what we're fighting for." His words resonated, a ripple of determination spreading through the fleet. In the hangars, pilots prepared their ships with renewed purpose. On the bridge, officers tightened their focus. And in the quiet corners of the Erebus Asterisk, soldiers shared silent nods of understanding, ready to face whatever came next. Meanwhile, aboard the Imperial command vessel, Admiral Vrix observed the unfolding situation with a calculated gaze. He knew the humans would fight fiercely. Desperation had a way of sharpening resolve. But he also knew the Empire's strength was overwhelming. Vrix's second-in-command, a sharp-eyed Vicaran named Zera, approached with an update. "The humans have launched a diversionary strike on one of our supply depots. Preliminary reports suggest significant damage." Vrix allowed a faint smile. As expected, they're predictable in their defiance. Zera hesitated. "There's something else, Admiral. The Emperor has issued new orders. He wants the human fleet destroyed completely, no survivors." Vrix's expression darkened. "Typical. He sees them as a pest to be eradicated. But extermination is a waste of resources." "Shall I relay your concerns to His Majesty?" Zera asked carefully. "No," Vrix replied after a pause. "We will follow orders. But I suspect this war is about more than the humans themselves. The Emperor fears something he hasn't shared with us." The Imperial fleet began its advance, an unstoppable wave of destruction moving inexorably toward the human resistance. On the bridge of the Erebus Asterisk, the alarm sounded, signaling the beginning of the battle. Kane watched as the red markers drew closer, his heart pounding with a mix of dread and determination. "Prepare for engagement," he ordered. "All ships, hold the line. This is where we make our stand." As the first Vicaran ships entered range, the human fleet opened fire. The void of space erupted in flashes of light and bursts of energy as the two forces collided. Kane barked orders, directing the fleet's movements with a precision born of years of experience. Every decision was a gamble, every maneuver a delicate balance between aggression and survival. The Erebus shook as enemy fire struck its shields, the crew working frantically to maintain the ship's defenses. Marina monitored the battle from her station, her voice cutting through the chaos as she relayed updates and coordinated reinforcements. Amidst the chaos, Kane couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. The Vicaran forces were relentless, but their movements lacked the coordination he'd expected. It was as if they were stalling, waiting for something or someone. And then, in the midst of the battle, a new signal appeared on the sensors. A massive Vicaran warship, larger and more heavily armed than anything humanity had faced before, emerged from hyperspace. Its presence was a chilling reminder of the Empire's overwhelming power. Kane stared at the display, his chest tightening. What in the hell is that? Marino's voice was barely a whisper. The flagship of their fleet, the Dominion *. The arrival of the Dominion * sent shockwaves through the human fleet, the sight of a colossal warship enough to shake even the most seasoned soldiers. But Kane refused to give in to despair. He gritted his teeth, his mind racing as he searched for a way to turn the tide. The battle raged on, each moment a test of humanity's resilience. And as the tension reached its breaking point, Kane realized that the fight for justice and survival was about to come to a head. The future of humanity hung in the balance, and the outcome was far from certain. "Then we give them a reason to fear us," Kane said, his voice firm. "We don't fight their war, we fight ours. Guerrilla tactics, precision strikes, we make them bleed for every inch they take." Moreno raised an eyebrow. "And the cost?" Kane's gaze hardened. "Whatever it takes." As he spoke, an alert sounded, and the holographic displays in the command center shifted. A priority transmission was incoming. The room fell silent as the insignia of the Galactic Empire appeared once again, filling the air with a palpable tension. This time, it wasn't a broadcast to the galaxy. It was a direct message to Earth Defense Command. The image of Emperor Taylor materialized, his imposing form dominating the screen. His black eyes seemed to pierce through the room, as if he could see every individual present. When he spoke, his tone was calm, almost amused. "General Alexander Kane," Taylor began, his voice a chilling blend of arrogance and control. "I trust you received my message. I hope it was enlightening." Kane stepped forward, his expression unreadable. Enlightening isn't the word I'd use. The faintest hint of a smile played at the corners of Taylor's mouth. Human defiance. So predictable. So futile. Do you truly believe you can challenge the might of the Empire? That you can stand against us and survive? Kane didn't flinch. "We've survived worse." "Have you?" Taylor's tone was mocking. 70,000 of your people are dead, General. Do you truly understand what that means? They were but the first. For every act of defiance, the price will rise. 100,000. 1 million. How many lives are you willing to sacrifice for your pride? Kane's hands clenched into fists at his sides, but his voice remained steady. "This isn't about pride. It's about justice. Something you clearly don't understand." Taylor's expression darkened. "Justice," he repeated, the word dripping with disdain. "You speak of justice as if it matters. As if your species is deserving of it. But very well, General. If you insist on playing the hero, then let us see how far your courage truly extends." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the room in stunned silence. Kane turned to Marino, his face set with grim determination. "Send a message to every colony," he ordered. "We mobilize immediately. And notify our intelligence teams. I want every piece of information we have on the Empire, their fleets, their command structures, their weaknesses. If there's a way to hurt them, we'll find it.